to another exciting episode of KidTV. I'm roving reporter Kate. Today we continue our series called Learning About Lawsuits. We'll be learning all about lawsuits in this series. Hi, this is Cindy, and you may be asking, why do I need to know about lawsuits? Well, if you're asking that question, keep watching. With us again today is lawyer Ryan Hodge from Wichita, Kansas. Mr. Hodge will be teaching us about lawsuits. So let's get started. Thank you for being with us again, Mr. Hodge. Last week we talked about what a personal injury lawsuit is. We ran out of time when we started talking about human losses. So tell us, what are human losses?
Well, thank you both for inviting me back. Last week, if you remember, we talked about rule breaking and that the law calls breaking the rules negligence. And when somebody breaks the rules and injures someone, the law allows the injured person to recover money for certain types of damages. Those three kinds of damages are medical expenses, wage loss, and what is called non-economic damages, something that I call human losses.
If the law calls them non-economic damages, why do you call them human losses?
Non-economic damages are the losses that you can't easily put a price tag on. They relate to what we experience as humans. That's why I call them human losses. There are four types of non-economic damages, or four types of human losses. There are pain and suffering, mental anguish, permanent disfigurement, and permanent disability.
Okay, I think we need some more explanation. You have told us about the four kinds of human losses, but what do they mean? I think I get pain and suffering, but what is mental anguish and the other stuff?
As you might guess, pain and suffering is the pain you feel from an injury, and suffering is how it affects you as a person. For example, if you hit your finger with a hammer, the pain you feel is in your finger. If at the end of the day, because you've hit your finger with a hammer, you don't feel like doing anything, that would be the suffering part because it affects your whole body. The second piece would be the mental anguish. A lot of times when somebody's injured, there may be fears of having a surgery, there may be fears of losing a job, or how you're going to pay for the medical bills. Those are very real fears and apprehensions, and the law says you're entitled to recover some money value for those damages. The third piece would be what we call permanent disfigurement. Permanent disfigurement is if you have an injury that causes scarring or some disfigurement of the body. That's permanent disfigurement. The final piece is what we call permanent disability. Permanent disability is the inability to do activities that you could do before. And so those are the four losses or damage components that you can recover that I call human losses.
You keep saying you can recover damages. What do you mean by that?
When the law talks about damages, it refers to money. When a person is injured, they can recover money or damages for their medical bills, their wage loss, and their human losses.
But how can you put a value on something like pain and suffering?
That's a great question. There is no standard way to calculate pain and suffering. In fact, the judge gives an instruction to the jury that tells them that there is no mathematical formula the court can give, but that they should return a verdict that will fairly and adequately compensate the plaintiff.
Well, if the court can't tell a jury how to put value on pain, suffering, or mental anguish, how is a jury supposed to do it?
Well, usually at a trial during closing argument, the lawyers will talk about a value for the human losses and how to put a value on human losses. For example, a jury could decide that a person's pain is worth a certain amount per day and then multiply that value by the number of days that they believe the person has experienced that level of pain. That would allow them to arrive at a value for the pain that the person has experienced. Although the court does not give a mathematical formula, the jury is entitled to use any method they want to arrive at a value, including a mathematical formula.
Okay, so let's review. Are you ready, Caitlin? You betcha! What are non-economic damages or human losses? Human losses are pain and suffering, mental anguish, permanent scarring, and permanent disability. What is pain and suffering? Pain is what you feel after you have been injured at the place of the injury. Suffering is how the injury affects you as a person. What is mental anguish? Mental anguish is like when you feel scared about what's going to happen. Like when you cried about going to the dentist. Excuse me? That was you, not me. Okay, moving right along. What's the next question? Changing the subject, are we? All right. What is permanent disfigurement? That's when you have a scar or a mark that does not go away. Other than that little comment about the dentist, you are doing great. Final question. What is permanent disability? Permanent disability is the inability to do certain activities ever again. Great job, Caitlin, but we are out of time. We want to thank Ryan Hodge again for being with us. Come back next week when we continue our series called Learning About Lawsuits. Until next time, be safe, be smart, and don't miss our next episode of KidTV. And as they say in Swahili, Jambo!
You are very welcome, and thank you for inviting me back.